And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey, Tom Vasel here.
Hey, I'm Garcia.
Today we're taking a look at Province, which is what's called a microgame because all the pieces in the game are incredibly tiny and small.
They are.
This is a game that I hadn't heard about much until I was looking at the games that the most people had played over 2014, and this was one of the ones in the top 30 or 50 or whatever. And I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd heard of it briefly, but I hadn't really given it, a second look. It seems so unassuming.
There's a lot of microgames out there. Some of them are good, some of them are not. Which one is this? You have a board that you place in the middle of the table, and if you can see my hand, you can see just how minuscule that board is. But a lot of the game is going to take place around this board, especially right here. You're going to start with 3 workers here in the middle, and these workers are people that both players can use. And on your turn, you can move any of these workers 1 space clockwise, and whenever you do that, you flip it over to show that you've used it, so you can keep track of which ones you used, and you're going to get wherever you go to. So if you go here, you're going to get money, and there's a pile of coins in the game, although that pile of coins is actually limited, and so you have to be careful, not to hoard them too much, because you're going to be spending them anyway. If you go here, you get work points, which are like virtual points that you can use that turn. You have a little dial that you can use, which keeps track of how many you get per turn. After you do that, you then have the opportunity, if you want to build a building. There are 8 different buildings that can be built that are next to the board. Each of these buildings has a cost in both money and in work points. And some of them have a prerequisite. So for example here, the smithy, you'll notice that little red arrow, you need to build the mill before you build the smithy. Now when you build a building, if you're the first player to build it, at the end of the game, you're going to get the points that the building's worth. That's worth 1, that's worth 2. The second player who builds it will put their house on the outside. They don't get any points for it, but they can still get the benefit for each of the buildings. So what do each of these buildings do? Well, the mill and the smithy give you a work point every turn. If you have both of them, you get 2 work points every turn. If you have the bank built, whenever you land on this one with one of the tokens, you will get 2 coins instead of 1. If you have the lender here, you can use the lending token, which is a token that you can grab, and when you use the lending token, you can copy what someone else has done on the board, but if you have the lending token at the end of the game, you are going to lose 2 points. You can pay to get rid of the lending token, so you can take it and use it again, but this basically lets you copy someone else's building. Over here at the camp will give you, that will unlock a new token that's out here that only you can use. Unless both players build the camp, then both players can use that. And the village brings out another token that again only you can use, but again if both players build the village, they have it. The union lets you pay 2 of your 2 money to get an extra work point. By the way, you can always pay 2 work points to get a money. That's something everyone can do. And the harbor unlocks, the harbor. Once the harbor is unlocked, each turn someone will flip both of these tokens here. And depending on the combination that comes up, players will have either, if you build a harbor, 2 blacks will give you an extra coin, 2 whites will give you an extra work, and 1 white and 1 black allows you to buy a sailor for 3 coins. A sailor is a guy who's in your color who only you can use, and you can buy up to 3 of them over the course of the game. So the more people you have, the more folks you're moving, and the more stuff you'll get, thus speeding the end of the game. The game will end when every building has been built, so all the buildings have been built by either player, or when one player has built 7 buildings, or when all the gold tokens are gone. At the top, you're going to have some random gold tokens here, and when someone completes that gold token, they will take it and it will be worth the points shown on it. So for example here, you have to have the 10 coin piece. If you get that, you'll take this. This one here, you have access to 2 workers besides the green workers, and you get that. This one here, you have the 5 coin. This one here, you've built 4 houses. And so at the end of the game, when the game is ended by one of these victory point triggers, You will add up the points for the buildings you've gotten. You will also add any points for any special victories that you've gotten. If you have the lending token, you lose 2 points. Whoever has the most points is the winner. If there's a tie, most structures wins. If there's still a tie, most workers wins. Okay, so Province is a game that's a micro game, and I have to say, for me personally, I'm kind of prejudiced against micro games because they're little and small, and I like my games to, I like to be able to move the pieces a little bit. And I will say that it doesn't bother me that much in here, but again, I think even in this size box, they could have made it a little bigger. I would have liked, for example, maybe well, no, I was about to say these guys could be replaced by wooden guys, but then flipping them over can be kind of handy.
Right. But again, something like this, all these little bits and coins, a tiny little money, it's a little more fiddly than it could be if the game was just slightly bigger. You know, I'm not saying put this in the, you know, in a big old box, but, you know, give me a bigger board than that. Look at that thing. I mean, it's so tiny. The writing's small, the numbering is small. A little bit bigger, just slightly, could have really helped this, for me, become something that stays on the shelf versus sort of gets shuffled under a pile of games and then I forget about it. You know what I mean? That's not to say the game's not good. I actually like the game quite a bit, and I think you did too, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm also not a big fan of rondelles.
Right.
And this is all about a rondelle, but it's so fascinating how this one works because you are really, you're really in the other person's face the entire game. Every time you move a guy, at first when we like, oh, we'll just move all 3 guys every time. Take whatever you get. But you don't always need to spend all the work points that each turn. And you don't always need money, and you also realize wherever you move people, you're setting the other guy up. So you might move to a spot that messes him over, and you really try to do that as much as possible.
Yeah, the game has a really interesting timing element to it, where it's as much about what you get as it is about denial for your opponent's turn. You know, I thought that was really interesting, where sometimes you purposely don't get something just so they have to set you up.
Right.
You know, and that's really cool.
Because
I like that a lot.
You're required to move one guy on your turn, okay? And it's really critical, I think, to get the neutral guys that you can move. To get a 4th guy, you can shoot and try to get those sailors, which are great because they're your own color, but it's easier to get the yellow and the orange dude because you can start moving them faster. And having 4 actions every turn as opposed to your opponent's 3 can be a big deal. So there's this back and forth. You're racing to get the buildings done. The lender token is powerful if you use it at the right point, but you want to get rid of the token then. So you got to be careful. Overall, I like it. My only niggling thing with it is I'm not a huge fan of the victory point conditions because I felt that, one, they weren't all equal. Some are way easier to do than others, and they were also a little bit lucky because you can only get 1 on your turn, and if it comes up and build 4 houses, well, hey, I've already done that. It just seemed a little anticlimactic. After all the work to get the houses done, the other stuff's not as important.
No, I really like the design. I'm a big fan of. I thought it was really neat. I don't like how small the game is again, and I really think that guys, this cover, come on, look, what is this gentleman here going through? I just want to walk up to him and give him a hug. Can we please make this game look like something I want to pick up off the shelf? Without walking into like a depressed, into a bookstore depressed is what this looks like. Better covers, please. A little bit bigger, nicer, more approachable cover, but the game design is really, it's a fun little game. I quite enjoyed it.
And that's Province. Dice Tower Judgment, approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!
There.